Okay, recording is in progress.
Yeah, I just wanted to turn it on
All right.
before it crashed.
Hmm. Hopefully. And
Here comes. Two more.
two more people. All right. I know the first service went long. There's some troubleshooting happening with some of the
words are there,
streaming.
by
The
the way.
words are,
Great, I can just skip them.
yeah. So, well, we're kind of getting settled in. Oh, I got some Bibles, maybe we can scriptures.
He passed one.
Oh,
That's his part.
great.
I thought that you.
We bought the heaviest Bible possible. So,
Whoa, how you know?
uh,
Me to take one from me? I'll take two. How about
very good. Oh.
Okay. Compared to
Well, so last week we didn't get to the scriptures, and I actually thought about putting them a little further down. But I'm mixing it up today, so we can take a look at some of these passages and reflect on them a little bit together, about like, where is God and how can we experience God's presence? And I think that some of these passages speak to these questions. So we've got 7 of them here. And if you'll do the first one, you got that one? So- Okay, I'll take Psalm 139 because it's long and we're not gonna read the whole thing. Somebody want the Genesis 15, Ben, and Genesis 28. Brady, there you go. Or Amber, you can take Exodus. You guys pick one of those two. So, yeah, Psalm 46.
God's defense of his city and people to the leader. Psalm. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth should change, though the mountains shake in the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam, though the mountains tremble with its tumult. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy habitation of the Most High. God is in the midst of the city, it shall not be moved. God will help it when the morning dawns. The nations are in an uproar, the kingdoms totter. He utters his voice, the earth melts. The Lord of hosts is with us, the God of Jacob is our refuge. Come behold the works of the Lord, see what desolations he has brought on the earth. He makes war cease to the end of the earth. He breaks the bow and shatters the spear. He burns the shields with fire. Be still and know that I am God. I am exalted among the nations. I am exalted in the earth. The Lord of everywhere.
Right. In these great works and destructions and things like that are happening. And then in verse 10,
You still know that
you still know that I'm God. So, well, that theme will come up again as we think about, we look for God in the big things, but also even in the midst maybe of all that and, finding a place of stillness. One of the things I want to talk about, in, maybe some today is, finding God in the chaos. I think that, if we could all live like Brother Lawrence, maybe we'd experience God more. And so, how do we find God amidst that? All right, Psalm 139, let's read some portions of this. I think this one's maybe a little more straightforward. O Lord, you have searched me and known me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from far away. You search out my path and my lying down and are acquainted with all my ways. Even before a word is on my tongue, excuse me, O Lord, you know it completely. You hem me in, behind, and before, and lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is so high that I cannot attain it. Where can I go from your spirit, or where can I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you are there. If I take the wings of the morning and settle at the farthest limits of the sea, even then, or even there, your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me fast. And so on. Kind of picture we have of God's presence there, Psalm 139.
Knows everything about us.
Yeah. That's very, very.
Even our
intimate.
thoughts from afar, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, this is kind of, it's almost like a Brother Lawrence, right? I mean, if we're talking about experiencing God, all the time and taking, joy. Genesis 15.
First, terrifying darkness descended upon him. Then the Lord said to Abram, know this for certain, that your offspring shall be aliens in a land that is not theirs, and shall be slaves on the nation that they serve, and afterward they shall come out with great possessions. As for yourself, you shall go to your ancestors in the fourth generation, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet complete. And when the sun had gone down, it was dark. A smoking fire pot and flaming torch passed between the pieces. On that day, the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, to your descendants, I will give this land from the river of Egypt to the Euphrates, the land of the Kenites, the Kinzaites, the Cadmonites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, and the Rephaim, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Girgashites, and the Jebusites. A lot of sites in there.
Yeah. That was a little more obscure, and you might remember, you can go back and look at the broader passage, but anybody remember that at all?
Yeah.
Abram had been instructed to take a bull and cut it in half. And so the ritual was to go, that the parties to the covenant, to this, contract, if you will, pass through the sacrifice, and the symbolism being that, may it be to me if I break the sacrifice. And so
The thing that jumps out to me in this passage is that the Lord was with him before he was Abraham. This is when he was still alive. So to me, that tells me that he's with us even before we're completely with him.
Yeah.
Jacob left Beersheba and went towards Haran. He came to a certain place and stayed there for the night because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones of the place, he put it under his head and lay down in that place. And he dreamed that there was a ladder set up on the earth, the top of it reaching to heaven. And the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And the Lord stood beside him and said, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham your father and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie I will give to you and to your offspring, and your offspring shall be like the dust of the earth. And you shall spread abroad to the west and to the east and to the north and to the south. And all the families of the earth shall be blessed in you and in your offspring. Know that I am with you and will keep wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land. For I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. Then Jacob woke from his sleep and said, surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. And he was afraid and said, how awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. So Jacob rose early and called that place Bethel, but the name of the city was Luz at the first. Then Jacob made a vow, saying, if God will be with me and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread to eat and clothing to wear, so that I come again to my father's house in peace, then the Lord shall be my God, and this stone, which I 2 pages, which I have set up for a pillar, shall be God's house. And of all that you give me, I will surely give 1/10 to you.
where we find God in that story. In the dream, right? The dream that he has. And I love, can you read 28:16 again?
Then Jacob woke from his sleep and said, surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it.
Yeah. Oh, is there more to it, or?
No.
Yeah. Yeah, so surely the Lord is in this place I did not. And so I think that one of the keys, if you will, if we're trying to practice God's presence more in the moment, is reflecting on where we found God that we did in unexpected places. And so I love the Genesis 28:16, for that purpose, that you know, like, wow, I was on holy ground, basically. I didn't realize it. All right, we gotta keep going here. Exodus, 3.
Moses was keeping the flock with his father-in-law Jethro, the priest of Midian. He led his flock beyond the wilderness and came to Mount Horeb, the mountain of God, where the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire out of the bush. He looked, and the bush was blazing, yet it was not consumed. Then Moses said, I will turn aside and look at this great sight. I will turn aside and look at this great sight and see why the bush is not being burned up. When the Lord saw that he had turned aside to see, God called to him out of the bush and says, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here I am. Then he said, Come no closer, remove your sandals from your feet, for the place on which you are standing is holy ground. He said further, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God.
So maybe sometimes literally burning bush, you know, kind of the obvious. But what is Moses instructed to do once he, you know, starts talking to this burning bush?
Take his sandals off?
Yeah, take your sandals off. Yeah, holy thing. We might envision, you know, in places where we're experiencing God's presence, maybe, you know, what are the things that we need to do to be more fully in that moment, you know, to recognize that the ground, probably more often than not, it would be, you know, instead of taking your sandals off, you know, put your phone aside or something.
Yeah.
That's-
Why do you have to take your sandals off?
Anybody know what, you've lived in the Middle East, what's the custom there?
Shoes are considered dirty because, you know, like animal dung and dirt and things like that. And so all of the ritualistic stuff involves taking your shoes off and washing your feet. And so it's a cleanliness thing because
Security's connection to all that stuff.
There you go, good.
He said, Go out and stand on the mountain before the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by. Now there was a great wind, so strong that it was splitting mountains and breaking rocks in pieces before the Lord, but the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, a sound of sheer silence. When Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his mantle and went out and stood in the entrance of the cave. Then there came a voice to him and said, What are you doing here, Elijah?
It's one of my favorites,
Mhm.
because it comes after his great triumph over all the prophets of Baal. It's like, he just had this incredible, like, experience, and then you're running in fear. And you can't find God. It's like, I can relate to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's probably a little more sort of self-explanatory. And then, lastly, who's got the Acts?
I've got
Okay.
22. Then Paul stood in front of the Areopagus and said, Athenians, I see how extremely religious you are in every way. For as I went through the city and looked carefully at the objects of your worship, I found among them an altar with the inscription, To an unknown God. What therefore you worship as unknown, this I proclaim to you. The God who made the world and everything in it, he who is Lord of heaven and earth, does not live in shrines made by human hands, nor is he served by human hands as though he needed anything, since he himself gives to all mortals life and breath and all things. From one ancestor, he made all nations to inhabit the whole earth, and he allotted the times of their existence and the boundaries of the places where they would live, so that they would search for God and perhaps grope for him and find him, though indeed he is not far from each one of us. For in him we live and move and have our being, as even some of our own poets have said. For we too are his offspring.
You know, every known God, and just in case, you know, one to kind of unknown God. And basically what he's saying, if you probably heard the term pantheism, right? Which is, you know, sort of everything is kind of God or is divine in some sort. That's our understanding, would be panentheism, which is like God in everything. You know, and that's sort of in essence, what we've been talking about, God present in all these different ways. You know, present in dreams, present in burning bushes, or, you know, quiet, you know, a gentle breeze, in the midst of war and, you know, tumult and whatever, that God is present in all of, you know, in all of these things. And, I think that's part of what, you know, what Brother Lawrence, I think, can invite us into, you know, that space. I keep wrestling with, and I wish Stan was here, you know, Stan was talking about last week how, you know, unattainable this all seems, you know, if you read through. And you know, I agree with him, but you know, again, I'm hoping that, you know, we can take little snippets of what he talks about, and how we can incorporate that a little bit more and more so that we can be attuned to God's presence in our lives. All right, so our assignment was because I know that probably for some, like, I didn't get mine until like last night. I was of your paper is a labyrinth, and those who are listening in, because I think lately we're just doing like it's like more like a podcast so that people are listening in to this, and there's going to be a bunch of silence that hopefully Lauren will edit out for us, because you know, I'm going to invite you to walk the labyrinth. You can use your finger, or, you know, the end of a pencil or something like that, or a pen, whatever it might be, for you to go on this journey. So a few things, and I try to save paper, so I put some instructions here that I adapted from a site, praywithjill@chartres.com. And Beck's not here to correct my French, but Chartres is a cathedral. It was a place, and there's a cathedral in Chartres in France. And on the floor of the cathedral is a labyrinth that is maybe larger. There are circuits. So if you count each ring as a circuit, so this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think that's a 7-circuit labyrinth, and I have a feeling that Chartres is maybe a little bit larger than that. Do you know offhand, or okay? You just had to look like maybe. Okay, so but at any rate, it's the same. It's the same idea, but maybe just a little bit larger. A labyrinth, unlike a maze, is you know, has one beginning and one end. You can't get lost in it, right? If you follow that. A maze is designed to kind of trick you, not a labyrinth. But you will, you know, I'll invite you to see for yourself as you walk this in a bit here, to think about the experience and where the journey takes you. But I'm just going to read through some of these instructions for you as we prepare for this. And these are essentially similar to why you're going on this walk. Maybe there's a concern that you just go, but maybe something comes to mind, and maybe that journey might bring a little more focus for you. Before you enter, just say a little prayer, dedicating that journey, that space to God. Actually walking a labyrinth, you know, with other people, you note the people around you. You don't want to bump into somebody or whatever, but you know, you might see the space. It's maybe a little bit different with a piece of paper, but maybe you keep your finger in a spot and you kind of look around, or you know, take in everything around you. Maybe there's something new that you discover in that. Is, you know, you might come with a certain thing in mind, and God has something else to say to you. Or maybe there are intrusions that need to be set aside. So, you know, if there's a space in there, you can just take a moment and reflect on that, and you know, see where it goes. When you get to the center, take some time to rest, reflect on what's happened. You know, pay attention to what you're sensing, and you know, take your time. And when you're ready, then you can begin your pathway back, and then having a sense of something then that God has given me to consider on my way out. if that's your experience, then on your way out, you can contemplate that, but again, kind of whatever that might be, can have an perspective. And then, yeah, when you reach the threshold, give thanks, for your experience. And, you know, you can, if you want, write down your thoughts, your feelings or whatever. Sometimes people find, you know, like maybe there's an image that comes to mind that they would draw or a picture in their mind, whatever it might be. All right. So we're gonna take a few minutes, to do this. Actually, maybe even, I'll kind of keep an eye, but we'll plan on about 10 minutes. I hope that's not too fast of a pace for you. But I also want to be able for us to be able to talk about it as well. Makes sense. So, any questions? All right, well, let's go at your own pace. Okay, invite you back into this space. Recognizing that 10 minutes may be way too long for some people, nearly long enough for others. Anybody have something, anybody like to share anything from the labyrinth?
I was relieved when you said I wasn't amazed.
Oh, no.
Took all the pressure off.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, because at any point in the journey, you can trust that you're gonna get to, you know, yeah, get to. Got it.
Well, just some thoughts, for me, when Chris was attending seminary. There was a labyrinth out on the portico just south of Geneva Hall. This is in San Anselmo, California. And that chapel was up on a hill. So the portico was up there as well, and yet it still looked up into the hills. And so it was a really great environment for meditation and so forth. Some of the thoughts that I have had from that experience, because I walked it many times. Going into it, I tend to get introspective. Coming out of it, it's more looking at a couple things. Number one, being thankful for that time for introspection. And secondly, being thankful for the opportunity to consider my place in the world. It kind of puts me in the center of it when I get to the center of the labyrinth, to where I can kind of look out and see where I fit in. It became even more meaningful after our first. And eventually I was able to walk it holding his hand.
Yeah. Cool.
And so really for me, a labyrinth carries a lot of meaning. And a lot of great memories.
There's.
I think the structure of the labyrinth itself was quite notable, because going quite slowly, like, okay, I'm like a quarter there, and then half there, and then it goes all the way back again.
Yeah.
And I think that in and of itself is quite meaningful in that night. Kind of like, you know, T.S. Eliot style, like returning back to where you began, but yet you know, but everything has changed. Or even the you're gonna go back and you're going forward, you know, and so I think that the structure was quite.
Yeah, cause you know, you get pretty close to the middle right away and then all of a sudden way out there. And then you end up right where you started practically, and you're almost to the back, you know, to the center to your destination, you know. Other observations.
Well, I think that I like to solve problems. And so, in my career, you know, I was like, okay, how can I fix this? And I'm very much, how can I fix this? So I was like, okay, so, yep, did it, okay, done, pass, okay. And then I looked around, and you said, look at the other people, and like, you were going super slow, and it was like, well, that was just the opposite of what I did. And I went, task achieved, you know, and it's just like, uh-oh. I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing
I
here, you
should
know,
have said, see how many times you can do it in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
like you were like doing this, and I go, oh, I'm really not kidding what this is supposed to be about, you know, and so, I think that it's hard for me to slow down. I'm real good at, like, give me a task, you know, like find the busiest person in church and give them a task. Because they're the ones that will do another thing for you. It's like, you know, I found that it's true, you know, it's like, oh, you've got plenty of time. You wanna do this? No. You know, oh, I know you're super busy. Can you make a soup for me? Yep, I'll fit it in, you know, and so it's just like, I guess it's. I find that I need to create more slow time and more reflective time because I'm constantly got, like today, you know, like a day's packed, you know, and I don't have time to sit. I have not made time to sit and reflect. That's the difference.
Small one,
Yeah.
yeah, but I didn't reflect or anything. It was in some garden. Where was that? The troll garden, I think in Gardner, I think. Somewhere there. I can't remember where it was, but yeah.
I think it, you know, I think it takes practice for one, and I think, you know, it may not be.
Terrible at quiet time. I hate it because my mind just goes a million miles an hour. Like I can't shut it down, cannot sit there. And so I've always felt like such a failure about it. But I also don't want something so mind intensive that you don't get the piece of it. And so I feel like this is that right amount of there's activity, it moves you forward, but it makes you move slowly. And so for me, it's a meaningful balance between those. And physiologically, it's such a de-escalating, like I found myself like my nervous system is just dialing down, which is a really important thing for me because I run at 100 miles an hour all the time. And so it's a very good way. And I think the thing that I almost was like, you know what, I want to incorporate in this. Because I was kind of thinking about how Catholics do the rosary, and there's that element of like little spots along the way where they have a small saying, not something really big and profound where you're digging into scripture and trying to figure things out, but just something to kind of put a little piece in your mind. But I don't know if you guys have heard of a term called breath prayers, where you breathe on the way in or pray something on the way in, then pray something on the way out. And I'm like, I almost want to like put little spots in some different places and then just have a list of breath prayers. And when you get to that point, that just simple wording and then continue on. And I feel like for me, that might be the perfect amount of like focusing without too much focus. So I don't feel like I'm just failing all the time.
Well, one thing that, you know, I've done sometimes is like every time you hit one of the 180 turns. You know, that you just pause for just a second, could be a prayer, just a pause, and then continue on, you know, just kind of. Especially if you're like, man, I gotta get through this thing, well, so you know, pause right at that
It's like,
moment.
should have done
You know, those are opportunities and stuff too, yeah. And when you're, I was kind of surprised actually because, I like walking the labyrinth and I think of different places and like even, hearing either sounds of nature or, if it's crushed gravel, or a path, your footsteps, kind of miss that, on this, just like dragging my finger across there. But, one thing that, I was thinking about, was like taking in surroundings, and part of it I had to let go, like, how is everybody else doing with this? 'Cause I'm kind of leading this and maybe some downstairs.
Yeah.
And it was a little bit, at first I was like, I don't know,
Really
trying to be focused. Yeah, they got really, and then later when we had like a couple minutes left and I'm waiting for everybody, I was done at that point. And it was like quiet, it's like, what's going on? But for me, what kind of, a couple of things that stood out was, the Psalm 46:10, be still and know that I'm God. And that kind of kept resonating, as with this idea that, God, I'm with you. And realizing that those voices are part of that journey for me, that stillness, for me as a pastor, stillness is, community is part of my stillness, I guess. And so, yeah, just thinking about those people along the way, I can't understand what they're saying or whatever, but there's kind of murmur of the saints maybe. And they got me, and that's where my, the wandering mind part thing, I started for a while, I was like, oh, kind of like, the saints, whatever. And I started thinking about some of the people that have, been part of the church that have died, and like thinking about some of them. And then it's kind of trusting in the path and letting those thoughts kind of come and go and, I found really fruitful. So, any other.
One thing for me is that this passage in Abraham that I read reminded me of the process of a journey. And when I left home as a young man and traveled to the southwest, which was a desert, and called it a high desert. And that's where I found God. And I was thinking about, yeah, it was a different kind of a journey as a young teenager, going from the deep south where I was from to the desert and seeing cactus. I remember riding on a Continental Trailways bus, and it was all so new and different. And yet that's where I found God, was in the southwest, in the desert, and kind of like him, like Abraham. He promised that he would come to this land and he would have some struggles, but after a period of time, they would come back and inherit it. And so, yeah, it's been a pretty neat journey. I'm in the promised land now in Port Angeles. But yet, the thing that hits me is God's always been with me, leading me in that sense that He's never leave us nor forsake us, like that passage, earlier passage. I do like that one little. I was going to bring up that one little quote by Elizabeth Barrett Browning. Earth is crammed with heaven, and every common bush afire with God, but only he who sees takes off his shoes. The rest sit round and pluck blackberries. And I really like that little, because it is. Just seeing God in a journey. I think it is. It's a pilgrimage. Our entire life, and we never stop growing.
Yeah. We have a few minutes here. Anybody want to toss in? Oh, before you guys, I know you have to go get family and everything. So just our assignment is, for next week is finding God in the negative space. And what I mean by that is like, you know, if it was hard for you to find a spot time to take a walk with God this week, right? You know, then, but that doesn't mean that God's not actively speaking. So it's, the negative space is kind of like when you're, you know, you've got other things on your mind, other things going on, where does God show up, you know, in those moments? So, and, you know, make a list, maybe some for your experiences or something, and maybe share those. Okay? So how about the experience of walking with God? Those of you who did, I'm good to hear like your, you know, guilty feelings. Don't worry about that. You could, that's fine. That's part of that negative.
Sometimes I find the rain and the gray to be kind of hard.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, and I did go for a walk out in the Owl Walk to the dam one day, and it was okay. It was pretty nice. I was with a friend, but nevertheless, you're by yourself a lot. I mean, your mind, you're not
Yeah.
talking and stuff. And the trees were so beautiful. You know, there was a little bit of sun shining through, and they're covered with the maples, the big leaf maples are just covered with that moss, or one of my friends used to call it green sweaters. And the light kind of filtering through. And it's so quiet and didn't hardly see anybody else. It's just, you know, it brings you back kind of to how beautiful God's creation is.
Yeah, some people don't like the woods, the forest because they don't have views. But it's a different kind of view that you see when you're in a forest, and there's so much to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The textures and.
Yeah, and the colors of green, how many colors, yeah. It's
How many shades? The way a crane took down on me a dust of snow from a hemlock tree has given my heart a change of mood and saved some part of a day I had brewed. I know, that always speaks to me, you know, just that something usually in nature just can, yeah, it totally transform how you're thinking.
Yeah.
Amen.
The other,
It's one of the things I seek when I go out on my boat. Then out there in the middle of the water, letting nature carry on, you know.
Yeah. And the water birds are back. If you ever walk the waterfront trail, they're just all out there this time of year.
I didn't have much time to add in a walk, but I have to do lunch duty every day and make sure the middle schoolers are behaving. So not just for this homework, but to get some more steps in as well. But I find that when I do that, I'm less focused on them and what they might be doing wrong and have to get caught at, and more about what they're doing right, and you know what the Lord wants to show me in general, and getting to know the kids, and you know how I might be spending my time in general. And like you, it's rained a lot lately, but I see specks of sun coming through the sky, and even a rainbow a couple of times a week, and different forms of wildlife. You know, it's all of it's a gift. Breaks up the day.
I make one more comment on the labyrinth, because what I shared earlier, my memories.
Yeah.
Basically, But this morning's thought, as I went through it, was the Lord saying that the path of righteousness is not always straight. But as long as you follow me, you'll get to where you need to go.
I think along that line, though, even the labyrinth is a reminder that the journey, God is in the journey, not just in the destination, right? I mean, the path is gonna lead there. Maybe we can, even though I have a different assignment this week or different practice, if you do get a walk in with God and want to share that next week, we can. We don't have as much time today, but I do want to read a little bit from Brother Lawrence. I should remember maybe next time that if you have some thoughts from Brother Lawrence that you want to bring up for discussion or whatever, you can do that next time or at any time. Just I guess. But I highlighted this on page 39 that I wanted to just reflect on briefly before we wrap up our time. Simply fix on God. His goal to convince his mind of God's presence and impress it deeply on his heart. His method, dedicating his convictions and feelings to the Lord while following the light of faith, rather than heady philosophical arguments or elaborate meditations. Now, that feels kind of elaborate still, that, the idea of spending hours in prayer simply fixed on God. But the idea that instead of these elaborate meditation, I want to focus on that, following the light of faith. This sure exercise helped him know and love God better. And in the process, he resolved to do all he could to live in God's presence and, as much as possible, never forget the Lord. As soon as he dedicated his mind in prayer to the highest thoughts of his infinite God, he reported to his job assignment in the kitchen, washing dishes and so on. And once he had figured out all the details of his work, he spent every possible moment of downtime as well as before and after work in prayer. I guess what I want to highlight is sort of the and yet, the simplicity of that. In my walk, just one thing that, again, it was last night, I'm like, I gotta do this. So, put my coat on, went out for a walk, it's dark out and everything, and I was like, but I look up and I don't know what the phase of the moon is, but it's nearly full, or whatever, and there was a moon halo. You see that kind of effect? Yeah, and so there was this halo, and it was kind of, I don't know, it's been cloudy, I guess, but enough that I could see the moon kind of through a little bit of the haze. And then over time, I could see one, probably not a star, it's probably Venus, but coming through through the clouds. And as I, just kind of walked around the neighborhood, I was kind of soaking in sort of the darkness and noticed where the lights were, some people's Christmas lights. Somebody a block up has like these freaking floodlights. I don't know how their neighbors they deal with it, because it's like it's lit up. Like from another place, you can see this tree just like lit up almost like day. I'm like, man, why are your lights so bright? And kind of realizing that it's like, the idea of God being present to me was just like a theme. The song, how does the chorus go? I will come to you. Yeah, that one.
I will come to you in the sun.
Yeah. What's the?
All your fear.
Yeah. Da 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 da. I love you and you are mine. Yeah. Anyway, that's kind of what came to mind. So. but also reflecting just a touch more
I'm
and
singing a song, yeah.
Genesis 28:16 is kind of the maybe a theme for this idea of God in the negative space. In other words, God in the place where you didn't necessarily expect God to be. And I just want to plant that seed as for you to think about. I could list a few things from last week where it's like, oh my gosh, that's something that I've been kind of thinking about or whatever. And there, it's, God's speaking in that moment. So I'd like you just to have a word with her. Lord. As it takes place. So we entrust our journey to you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Yeah, right on the crack.